We're going to do an activity, and I'm going to have you divide up. But before I have you divide up, I'm going to tell you what the activity is. Okay? It's very simple. I'm going to divide you up in birth order. So we'll have firstborns and onlyborns. We'll have our middles, and we'll have our babies. And all you have to do as a group is plan a social event. And the only rule is that minimally you have to include the people that are in your group. Minimally. You can do anything else. That's the only rule. Are there any questions about that? Firstborns, onlyborns. Okay, firstborns, onlyborns, I want you right up here. My middles, I want way down there.
This is you're
not your kids, it's you. It's all about you. And babies, I want you right back there in the back.
Why wouldn't you put the middle in the middle? Yeah.
Now, some of the discussion back here initially was they started talking a little bit and just said, well, we'll have a big picnic, everybody will come. What's so hard about this? You know, that's what they're going to. And then they started talking a little bit more and said, oh, I suppose we need a date to do this. We better find a date. And everybody else kind of started off, here's the date, here's the time we're going to do this. But again, everybody is invited. Anybody that they see, anybody that they know. You guys are inviting the parents, and you guys are inviting your immediate families and the staff and us and themselves. Very, very typical that firstborns are going to kind of just make it about a smaller group. These guys, remember, these guys are kind of the middle children are the ones that are not, when they're children, they're the least likely to connect or stay close to their family, and they form a very tight group with friends or their nucleus family. When they get married, and that becomes very, very important, their children, their family becomes more important than the family that they left, usually. And these guys just want to party and have as many people around them as they possibly can. When I said we had 3 or 4 more minutes, these guys were already done. Which is interesting because usually when I say we have 1 or 2 minutes, that's when they start. But they kind of did it opposite in that they finished it and then they were just socializing and playing. And did you hear them laughing all the time? You guys weren't quite as extreme as the group that we had Monday or Tuesday. The firstborns, then, there were so many of them that we divided in 2 groups. But it was very interesting because they told exactly what everyone else was going to do. They will do this, they will do that, you will bring this, and they just kind of farmed out everything. They were going to do it at my farm, didn't even ask. Gonna put Joe and I in the dunk tanks, and we're very specific, very ordered. When I asked the babies to read what was on their list, they had beer, karaoke, people, party, come. That's what was on their list. The middles, on Tuesday, it was very interesting. It was about the same size group, and even before they started planning, you saw them kind of just talking to the 2 or 3 people in their small little group among themselves. There were like 3 different things going on before they finally decided among themselves, very compromising, very sweet to each other, that they'd probably better start working together. But everything was kind of a question. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Should we do this? Whereas these guys are more, we're doing boom, 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 boom. And these guys kind of whatever comes to their mind, they're writing down, everybody's coming, and we're having a good time. So you can kind of see a bit the dynamics of just the differences. And birth order is really kind of fun, and it's just fun to see the dynamics. You guys were a little bit different because you weren't quite as specific as firstborns usually are. Most firstborn groups would not have had a party that would have just gone on forever. It would have definitely had a start time and a stop time, and it wouldn't have gone all night. It would have been very much more controlled than you guys. So congratulations on coming out of your box just a little bit. That was good. Okay. Any questions on birth order just from this small little fun exercise? It is interesting to do. It's fun to do at parties sometimes and watch the dynamics, and it all depends what kind of group you're in. I do this with college kids sometimes, And when you do it with college kids, you usually get those extremes. You've got usually the firstborn saying, we're just going to invite the people in our group. They're very specific about what time they're all meeting, where they're meeting, what they're doing next. Very detailed about hors d'oeuvres, here, who's in charge of being the person that's going to be the driver that hasn't drank. These guys with college kids will usually make it about them and their immediate family, their spouses and children if they have it. And these guys are always, we're going to the lake, everybody bring beer and something to eat. If you see somebody, invite them, we're going to have a great time. That's usually how it plays out. So thank you for playing. That was fun. You can come back to your seats if you want. And yes, anybody have a question?
Are there couples that doesn't matter whether, is there a dynamic that says middles marry middles or?
Oh yeah, but usually when I tell people, then it causes divorces.
You don't want to hear it.
But yes, there is research on that for the best relationships and the worst relationships. You want me to tell you?
Yes.
The worst married relationships are when firstborns or onlyborns marry each other, because there's usually such a power struggle about who's going to be in charge. The best relationship is when the woman is the oldest and the man is the baby. And you can figure that out for yourselves. And then another poor relationship is when babies marry each other. They have tons of fun, but it's usually very chaotic in the relationship. When middles marry each other, it's usually called, two middles are pretty muddled, because middles have a tendency to not talk about things that bother them because they want to have compromise, they want to have harmony, they don't want to cause any upset. And if you get two middles married to each other, a lot of times you'll find a lot of frustration, but neither one wants to say anything to resolve the issues, and so they just kind of hold it in and hold it in. So, usually better to marry outside of your birth order. How many are firstborns married to each other here? Okay. Do I have any babies? Your two babies are married. Do we have any middles to middles? See? And everything's fine. But when I say some of these things, you might get that sometimes, and I don't know, we'd have to sit down and have long counseling talk, but a lot of times, because middles are the least likely to go to counseling, because they usually are the ones that are best adjusted. They work out things. They learn to work out things on their own as their life goes on, because people are usually busy with the oldest or busy with the baby. So they are also the ones that are trying to keep everything in harmony, not having this person fight with this person, and they're usually stuck in the middle. But they're also the most loyal. They're probably the ones that are going to stay in the marriage the longest, even if they're unhappy. When they do go to counseling, it is usually because they're so frustrated and the marriage is falling apart and they don't know why, and it's usually because the communication just has not been there to make that happen. Firstborns are most likely to go to counseling, not because they're the messed up, but because of their thinking process of, I've got a professional here that can help me through this, so I'm going to go and get some help. Babies are usually the best salespeople in the world. They can sell you about anything. They're the ones that are the most persistent and the ones that are just gregarious. And there's all kinds of information that if you're going to go and try to make a deal, like if you want to make a presentation to someone, you're very matter of fact when you talk to firstborns. You go in, you have things written down, and you go in, you don't do a bunch of small talk. It is, we're down to business, here's what we're going to do. They hate wasting time. But if you tried that with the baby on the other end would be saying, wait a minute, how's your family, what's going on, did you go swimming today, They need to have a kind of a playful presentation to them. These guys, they want you to connect with them and their kind of immediate family, ask about their family. If you ever decide that you're going to, like, ask if any of these guys, you ask them to go out to lunch, hey, I want to meet you at 1 o'clock, let's go out to lunch. And then you call and say, hey, I'm going to bring somebody else along. They'll probably say to you, no, it needs to be you and I. That's what we decided. That's what we're doing. If you are planning a time with them and I'm going to say, hey, do you want to go to the movie with me? And then I show up with another friend, they're hurt because they thought we were going to connect, and now there's another person, again, like always, in their life. You guys, if I brought 10 people, you'd be like, cool. Any more people you want to bring? That's fine. So a lot of interesting dynamics when it comes to selling to different people in different birth orders. If you know if you're trying to get a job and you can figure out what the birth order is of the person that's interviewing you, or you're trying to get them to buy something from you, it makes a world of difference. And sometimes you can tell just by walking in their office. If they walk into an office, oftentimes the firstborn's office are just pretty officey. They might have a picture on their nice little neat table of their family, but not a lot of happy pictures decorated a lot. These guys are going to have probably a lot of pictures of their children doing happy little things with their nucleus family. These guys, when you walk into their office, it's usually lots of pictures, lots of stuff, lots of toys to people to play with, things to pick up. So a lot of times you can pick up that information just by scanning the office about who you're talking to. So we've got a lot to do. We could talk about this forever because I think it's fun. But Joe needs to get down to business because...
I'm firstborn.
All right.
We didn't talk yet about any Myers-Briggs.
You said you talked to them about why we have a good working relationship. So just say, about Myers-Briggs. So you told him you tell him why.
I told him you'd tell him why.
We'll do it together. I'll stay with this.
I'll hold the mic.
Okay.
Okay. Now that you're back in your spots, we also want to tell you just a little bit about, since we just did the birth order thing, we're going to answer all your questions the rest of the day. That's all we're going to do is answer your questions. I have a list of questions that I want to make sure that I get checked off so that you have the information. But with birth order, that is one of the things that on the roommate questionnaire that I look at when I place roommates together, that's one of the things I look at. And I also look at their Myers-Briggs code, which we said yesterday we were going to share more information about that and tell you what Vicki and I were as far as Myers-Briggs go.
Let's see if they can figure it out.
Okay.
All right. Myers-Briggs, there are four, you get a 4-letter code with 8 possibilities. So the first one is you have to be either an introvert or an extrovert. Which are we?
Extroverts.
What am I?
You're an extrovert.
What's he?
That's
Exactly right. The next one is an S or an N. It stands for sensing or intuitive. The S's are people that are pretty practical. If I see it, taste it, look at it, touch it, I believe it. The N's are those people that are more intuitive, kind of like to look at things and get a gut feeling from things, and that's how they react. Which am I?
Yes.
Which is he?
N.
Wrong. He's the S. I'm the N.
What did S stand for?
Sensing. Very much make decisions and see the world based on your senses. T and F are the next two, whether you make decisions based on what you think or what you feel. What's he? What am I? Exactly. The next one is based on kind of your organizational skills. It's a J or a P. It stands for J, stands for judging. P stands for perceiving. But basically what that means is the J's are those folks that read the directions before they put something together. They like to have rules. They like to know what the rules of the game are, where the boundaries, where it's going to stop, pretty organized. They're wonderful people to have for secretaries because they always know where things are and remember those kind of things. P's are more of those people that hate to have dates or things that they know they have to go to, kind of go with the flow, pretty spontaneous. If they don't feel like going to the baby shower that they committed to a week ago because it's sunny outside, they'll just say, not going. All right, what's Joe? What am I? I'm a P. Although I live very much in a J world. And my P has definitely become a lot more J in my job. So Joe and I are opposite.
So
every one of our codes.
every letter is different in our code. So we're the exact opposite of each other.
What that means is you put us all together and we're one perfect person. And it does help our working relationship immensely because we're always looking at every situation from every perspective. And when we're talking to people, it really works. However, if you marry someone, it is not best to marry someone that has every code exactly like yours or every code opposite of yours, because this can present huge problems, especially between the I and the E's. When I go home, although this has changed a lot now, I just like to be alone when I go home. But when I was younger, it was I relaxed by being around people, sitting around, chatting, talking, having a lot of fun. I's relax a lot of time by just leave me alone, give me my space, stay out of my way. And if you've got two people that are married just that are I's and E's, what they need after a hard day's work can be very different. The other huge big conflict is between the P's and the J's, especially if your kids are living together. If you've got a P and a J living together, those are the ones that probably want to kill each other a lot of times, because the J's rooms are very organized, neat. A lot of times the refrigerators are, the ketchup always stays on the top shelf. The mustard is always on the bottom shelf. Whereas the P's a lot of times are, maybe it's in their closet, and these are extremes. So the whole point of the Myers-Briggs is to find what your preference is. And if you are extreme one way, to understand that you might need to come back and learn some of the other responsibilities or what it means to live in somebody else's world. And in relationships, that makes a big difference, because P's oftentimes insult J's all over the place with, oh, I've changed my mind, let's not do that. And they're like, no, you can't change your mind. You've committed to this, we're doing it. Their calendars are ordered and they follow them. P's hate to make appointments. They'll be the people that'll say, can I wait and see what the weather looks like before I decide if I'm going to do that? And it can cause a lot of conflict. So in general, quickly, that's what it is. That's why we work together. Well, one of the reasons we work together well. And I'm his boss. That's another reason we work together well.
That's right.
All right. Joe's gonna
That's not
answer
really
them.
my code, but that's what I told her it was. But it is true that if we ever need anything put together or anything in the office and it's Vicky's, the instruction book ends up on my desk somehow, and I have to read the instructions and say, okay, this is how we do it.
I hate reading them. I mean, who wants to read an instruction book? And a lot of J's are like, why would you even start without looking at the instruction book? And P's are more, I'm going to see if I can do it on my own. And if I can't do it, not going to read the instruction book, I'm giving it to Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, having said all that, and now just giving you kind of, if you weren't familiar with the Myers-Briggs, that's what it's about. I will look at your kids' Myers-Briggs when we do roommate placements and everything in birth order, and it's not the final answer to anything, but it is nice to have some of those indicators. And if it were between three people that I was trying to match up, and they were all pretty equal as far as all their other characteristics would actually make good roommates. And then if I saw a particular birth order combination or a particular Myers-Briggs, I'd say, okay, well, out of these three, these two actually match up the best based on that. So it's just one of the factors I use to kind of figure out what would work best for a roommate pair. So, okay, the rest of the day, the rest of the time you're with us anyway, which is about another hour, is all about you guys and what you want to know so that you can feel comfortable sending your kids and entrusting us to take care of your kids for the next 10 months, basically. So what do you guys want to know? Did anybody write down any questions, or do you want me to just start right into my list? Yes?
I've read, browsing through the student guide and stuff, that for the extended days, this is closed. What
Yes.
happens if they have to stay?
Okay, a question about extended weekends. What does that mean? What if I can't pick up my son or daughter? Do they have to go home? And the answer is yes, they all have to go home, because I literally closed down the residence hall and we have nobody working in there. So all of the student life staff goes home, everybody goes home. So if you're not able to come and get your child on an extended weekend, you've got to make arrangements. Maybe another family member can come and pick them up. Maybe they've made a friend that lives local here in Muncie or Anderson or Yorktown or somewhere close by, and they could just go stay with them. Because the extended weekends, sometimes they're 3 or 4 days, but then again, our spring break is a week, our Thanksgiving break is a week, So for those longer ones, you probably wouldn't want them just to stay with somebody in Muncie unless the family was really, into having other kids over for that long period of time. But they do have to leave the residence hall. And every time we close for an extended weekend, we always close at 7 p.m. So if we close on a Thursday, that means you've got to make it to the building by 7 p.m. to get them out of the building by that time. When we reopen, it varies which day we reopen, but let's say we reopen on a Sunday, we always open at 4 o'clock. So you can't bring your kids back before 4 o'clock. So you can't bring them back before 4 o'clock because no one will be here. The doors will be locked unless you just want them to sit out front, which I wouldn't recommend. But you can bring them back anytime after 4 o'clock, so you don't have to rush to bring them back right at 4 o'clock. If you can't bring them back till 8 o'clock, that's fine. So that's how extendeds work. Yeah?
Our daughter made the cheerleading squad.
Okay.
So it's extended weekend and they have a game or something like that.
Yes.
Is that like prearranged or do you have to?
That's a really good question. So if you have a student that ends up on an athletic team and they have a game on one of the days that we're totally closed, that's up to you to make arrangements with maybe another teammate's family to have them stay overnight with them one night, or maybe it's a soccer game that's on a Saturday, but we close the building on a Thursday, so that'd be one of the weekends where maybe they find a teammate that they're going to stay the weekend with them and they're going to go to the game with that other family. But that is up to you guys to figure out, because we can't house anybody over those extended weekends. Okay, what else? Yeah.
Okay, so excuse me, you close the building at 4 on Friday.
At 7. We
Or
close,
7 on
yeah.
Friday. You open up at 4 on Sunday. Say Kayla would have a class start at 8 on Monday.
Uh-huh.
Could you show up at 7 o'clock
Yes.
on Monday morning?
Yep, okay, so the question is, after we reopen the building, do they have to show up on that opening day, or can they just show up for their next class period, basically? And in her example, okay, we reopen at 4 o'clock on Sunday, but your son or daughter doesn't have class on Monday until 10 o'clock, so can you just bring them back at 9 o'clock on Monday morning? Absolutely. Just make sure that they're back for their next class, that's fine. Probably an even better example of that would be, I think it's the October break. We open up on a Tuesday. No, I think we open up on a Monday evening. So on Tuesday would be their next class, and they might not have class until Tuesday afternoon, because Tuesdays and Thursdays are our lab days. And so a lot of times on the lab days, they just have a long afternoon lab or something like that. So you might bring them back, at noon on the next day. That's fine. There's no reason that they need to be back if they have things to do at home. Of course, we will be glad to see them when they come back, but you can absolutely keep them as long as you want. Yeah. Yeah.
We have somebody living in the same town as that's going here for sixth grade. Can they bring him along on the weekends?
Okay. So the question is, and this will lead me into a lot of other topics, but the question is, if we know somebody from our hometown that's a student at Ball State, could that student then bring them home if they happen to be coming home for the weekend anyway? And the answer is yes, but let me kind of give you some guidelines about that. On move-in day, what's move-in day? August? 4th. Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew when it was. So on August 4th, when we have move-in, it's in the morning. Move-in is in the morning, so it's from 7:30 to 11:30 in the morning. You get moved in. Now, you may or may not get your child all settled in the room and posters hung up and all that, but you got to get all their stuff in during that time. At that point, we have a break where everybody hopefully grabs lunch or something like that, and then we have a welcome convocation here in the auditorium. After that, the parents break off into groups and the kids break off into groups. The kids go do a bunch of fun activities. You guys get to sit through some meetings. So I know you're all thrilled about that. It doesn't seem fair. They get to do all the activities. You guys have to sit through these meetings. Don't worry, we'll get them back. We'll put them through some rigorous classes, and they'll sit through some meetings too. But when you go to the meetings, it's called the parent meetings, and these are probably the most important meetings because these are meetings with your particular student life counselor. So whoever your son or daughter is assigned to as far as the live-in staff member, the student life counselor that's going to be there to kind of observe how they're doing, be your connection as far as if you're interested in is my son or daughter adjusting well? This is the person that's going to know, because they're going to live right there on the floor with them, and you should try to develop a good relationship with them. You're going to have individual meetings. We'll have 2 student life counselors and their junior parents will be in these meetings. So it'll be a pretty small meeting group. Why I'm telling you this is the question about, can a Ball State student transport my kid home if they're from our hometown? At those meetings with the student life counselors, they'll talk to you about, here's how you give someone permission to transport your kid anywhere, okay? And I'll just kind of give you a real brief summary of this, and then on that day, they'll give you all the details. There's 2 different types of permission, I guess. One is overnight permission, so you're going to give someone permission to take your son or daughter out, and they're not returning for the overnight period. They're gone. They're not in our custody anymore. You're basically saying, this person that's coming to pick them up now has custody of them. And every time that happens, you have to call us or fax us or let us know somehow that this person is the person assigned to come and get my child overnight. Anybody that's ever picking up a student for any reason has to be over 18. And we don't have any exceptions to that, because they're literally taking custody of the child. We no longer are responsible for them. That person is responsible for them. So there's overnight permission, and then there's what we call day travel, which means Grandpa is passing through town. He wants to be able to take Johnny out for lunch. And it's a one-time thing. He's hardly ever coming through Muncie. So you guys can just call in and say, hey, Grandpa's coming through. We want him to be able to take him to lunch. And we'll make a special note of that. And when that happens, he can come and take him to lunch. The other part of this is, and this would be the example with the Ball State student wanting to take your child home. If you don't want to make this an ongoing thing or an every weekend thing, if it's a one-time thing, you would just call in and say, this person from Ball State is going to come and pick up my son and bring him home for the weekend, and we give permission for that. What the student life counselors are going to talk to you about is something that we call the white form. And the white form it's a blanket permission form for anybody that you put on this form can take your son or daughter out, not overnight, but they can always come and get them, like to take them to Wendy's for lunch, or to run them out to Walmart to get school supplies, or toiletries, or whatever they need, just those regular type trips. So anybody you put on this white form, though, it's blanket permission. And what that means is you're not going to know if that person shows up and takes them somewhere. There's no contact with the parent. It's just they show up and take them anytime. So you have to be really, really careful who you put on the blanket permission form, because you won't know any time that they're coming and getting them. So on move-in day, if you have people in mind that you want on the white form, you need to bring those people's names and addresses and phone numbers, because we include that on the white form as you fill it out. The only people that can put anyone on that blanket permission form is you guys in person. You can't call me and say, hey, please add this person to my white form. I won't do that. You can't fax us. You can't email us, anything. You have to literally do it in person. Now, if you ever want to take somebody off the white form, I'm okay with you calling me and say, take this person off, or you can email me or whatever, or you can even call the front desk and just have a random person take that, and they'll take that person off. I'm always okay making a mistake removing someone. I'm never okay with making a mistake adding someone. So if you had a situation that came up where okay, well, now we want to add this person, and there's a situation coming up this weekend that we want them to take them, well, all you have to do is call the front desk and just say, I want to give one-time permission to sign this person out, or to have my son or daughter signed out. When I'm there in person next time, which might be another month from now, I'm going to add this person. But in the meantime, I'll have to call in each time. Okay, so you literally have to be there in person to add them. It's okay if you call in for several weeks, one-time permission, one-time permission, one-time permission. Next time you're there in person, just add them to the white form. Yeah?
How will you know it's us calling in?
For the one-time permission? What we do is we do a callback, okay? And on all of our forms, when someone calls in and we're taking all the information on what we call a gold form, and I know I'm saying gold form, white form, we have all these different forms. But when you call in, anytime you call in, we take all the information down and it's put in a callback pile. And then at some point, a student life staff member will come back to the callback pile, and if the box isn't marked that we haven't called you back yet, they'll pick up the phone, They won't call the number that's on the sheet that you gave us because maybe it's not you calling. We'll go into our database and we'll call the home phone number and we'll leave a message and say, hey, just wanted to call and confirm that this is the case. If this is not the case, please call us back and let us know. And believe it or not, almost every year we have a parent call back and say, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they talk to their son or daughter about who might have called that in. Yeah, so that's a good question.
And then another thing on the white form, do you check IDs of the people that come?
Yeah, and this is a really good point. Do a check IDs when people come to sign your son or daughter out? Absolutely. The only time we wouldn't is, Jack, if you showed up and I know who your daughter is now, I probably won't check your ID anymore. But if a semester from now I forget who you are or I forget who your daughter is exactly, I might ask you again. So please don't be offended if I forget who you're associated with, or if a student life counselor forgets. They may stop asking you for ID at some point when they make that mental connection of, okay, yeah, this is this person's dad, or this is this person's even aunt who always comes and takes whoever to church or whatever. We may stop at some point because we will regularly see you. But please don't be offended if at some point you're not asked and then later down the road you are asked, because we've got a lot of people that work here and all we're trying to do is keep your sons and daughters safe. So please don't be offended by that. And even, not even just at the front desk when you're checking somebody out, but if you're just walking through one of our lounges to go use a restroom and someone stops you and says, can I help you with something? Don't be offended by that, because all we're doing is we're just trying to make sure that the people who are in the building should be in the building. Most of us, and I forgot mine today, but most of the staff, I think I had it on yesterday, we have these gold name tags that we wear, so it's real easy to identify us walking through the building. But when we see other adults in the building, we're asking, generally, unless we recognize you, we're going to be asking, can I help you with something? Can I direct you somewhere? Are you looking for someone? So that's a really good question. Yeah.
If there isn't anybody around that for living close to help them, how do they get to church or go to Walgreens to get a prescription?
Yeah.
Does that come about? Do they have access to public transportation?
Yes, there's a lot of different options here. The students can always ride public transportation. Muncie has a bus system called the MITS bus system. It's the Muncie, Indiana Transit System. With their student ID, they can ride for free. So all they have to do is show their ID. They can go anywhere in Muncie. We have 2 stops that are probably within 4 blocks of Wagner Hall, so they can get anywhere they want. It goes all the way out to Walmart on the west side and all the way out to the mall, which is kind of on the far east side of Muncie. So they can literally get anywhere in Muncie. The other option is they can always ride in a taxi. They can always take, if they have a local person who can come and help them, do the transportation, they could do that. We do some transportation. We take the students to athletic practices. We take them to school-related type events, so you don't have to worry about how do they get to soccer practice because it's way on the north side of town. Well, we take them to that practice because it's so far away. Sometimes, if a student is really sick, the nurses will transport them over to like CVS or Walgreens if they need to pick up a prescription or something like that. So we do a little bit of school-type transportation, but for their day-to-day, I want to go to the mall, they can take the bus. We don't transport them out there, generally speaking. Sometimes on some weekends, and this will happen at the beginning of the year more than any other time. Wave to your kids. Oh, they're already past us. Oh.
The kids, look.
So they can get around town. At the beginning of the year, we will schedule some runs like to Walmart or to Meijer or Target. We'll schedule some runs at the beginning of the year just because sometimes students will get here and they won't realize, oh, I totally forgot this basic school supply, but I need to go get it. And so on some of the weekends at the very beginning, we'll schedule van runs out there, but we don't do that all year long. So. Yeah, we have we have one minivan and then we have one larger van that we have access to. Yeah.
Can they go by themselves, or do they always have to find somebody else to go?
Can they go by themselves, or do they always have to find someone to go with them? The way we work it out is right now after 6:30 p.m. they have to go with somebody. If it's during the day, they can go by themselves. we're actually thinking about changing the 6:30 time right now. It's not going to happen this year, but we're talking about now that Indiana's doing daylight savings time. The whole reason that we have it at 6:30 is because that was a time on average where it would start getting dark, especially through the winter and the fall and the early spring. But now it's a little different, and we're going to kind of see how this school year works out, because at the beginning of the year, 6:30 is not going to even be close to dark in August. So we're thinking about that, but that's the reason. It's pure safety after dark kind of thing. Yeah.
On the white form, when we put somebody on there, they are still, well, meaning our kids are still bound under the curfew and that type of thing, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my son or daughter signs out for day travel with somebody that's on their white form.
He's going to have a cousin that's at Ball State.
Okay, so signs out with cousin, and they decide they're going to the mall or whatever. He still has to make it back for the curfews that we already have set up. And actually, the form that they sign as they're leaving the building, there's a little paragraph there that they sign that, yes, I'm going to make it back for all the curfews and everything. So not that they all read that as they sign it, but it is on there, and we tell them it's on there too. So.
And then one more.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
When we're one of those families that's way up in Northwest Indiana.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a good 3 hours away.
Okay.
When we were here for preview day, one of the young ladies that was taking us around on that day was talking about, I don't know if parents had done this, if the parent organization or what, that there was a charter bus that she was using with a lot of other students from the region.
Right.
And would come down for the extended breaks, would come down and pick them up and then take them to a central location. What?
Okay, so this is what she's talking about is we have something that's called the region bus, and what it is it's a big charter bus that the parent organization organizes 100%. We don't have the school doesn't have anything to do with it. Now, of the 10 years I've been here, 9 of those years that has existed. I don't know if it's going to exist this year because I haven't heard who's going to take that over yet. But what it is it's a bus that shows up on extended weekends, and it runs up to what everybody calls the region, which I was never familiar with that term until I moved here. But I guess it's the Maryville, Gary area. And the bus stop is in Maryville. There you go. The Denny's in front of the Radisson. So I have no idea where that's at specifically other than this description. Yeah.
So who would we contact to find out about that?
You will hear from the parent organization today, and you can ask that question. Yep. Yep. You're welcome. Now, just so you know about that bus, because I always get this question, even though the route they take is from Muncie, when they leave Muncie, they go down to Indy and they go up 65. They don't stop in Indianapolis. They don't stop in Lafayette. The stop is in Maryville. That's it. There's no in-between stops. So if you're going to ask that question of the IAPO, the Indiana Academy Parent Organization, they're going to say no. So just want to go ahead and get that out of the way for you. What else? Oh, go ahead.
Is there, I know that we were here for the tour earlier. My daughter's big into the equestrian sports.
Okay.
And maybe she can't find a buddy to go with her to a barn or, okay, good. So we found a buddy. So is there a barn, like the Ball State equestrian team I know is potentially available? I mean, we'll have to see how things pan out with studies and stuff. I was thinking about bringing her horse out here so she could board just to give her a release and make her feel more like she's at home and she's not missing out on her one passion in life.
I don't know what the question is. I'm sorry.
How could she? I mean, can she get involved in the Ball State equestrian team? I mean, is there going to be stuff like that? I mean,
well, this is a good question. Just about can our students be involved in Ball State clubs in general? I mean, that's probably a easier way to look at it, because I don't know specifically about like an equestrian club. I have no idea what their guidelines are or what their policies are. Generally speaking, for Ball State clubs, a lot of clubs will let our students get involved in like the practices or the rehearsals or the whatever, but a lot of times they won't let them participate in the main events. So let's say fencing, for instance, just because I know they have fencing. They might let our students show up and learn some things about fencing. I don't know this for sure, but my guess would be they would let them show up and basically be a pincushion for all the college kids. But then when it comes to the actual tournaments they're in, I don't think they'll let them participate. I don't know of any club that has let our kids participate in the actual events that, that they're practicing for or that they're training for or whatever. But it varies from club to club, so I don't know specifically about equestrian. That'd be something you'd have to contact Ball State and ask them.
Okay, do you have like just go on the website and find like the equestrian
That's what I would
club?
do. Yeah. And that's what I would do with all the clubs that your kids might be interested in as far as Ball State clubs. The academy has clubs, and all of our clubs are student driven. So a student yesterday asked me, do you have a photography club? And I said, well, we have had a photography club, but every year our clubs change based on student interest. So if you want to start a photography club, we have a club form that you fill out as a student, and you find a sponsor for that club. And then we have something called Club Fair, which is in September, that all the clubs that have formed have tables set up in our lounges, and the kids walk through, all the other students walk through, and they figure out, oh, I want to join that club, I want to join that club. And if they don't find a club that interests them, they can start their own club after Club Fair. So our clubs vary from year to year, but last year, we only have 300 students, we had 46 clubs. So, yeah, so we have a very diverse body of interest just within our 300 students. 46 is a really high number. Normally we're around 30 clubs, so we can have a wide variety of clubs. Yeah.
In the event of an all-campus emergency that involving Ball State or
Yeah.
how do you notify?
That's a good question. So in the event of an all-campus emergency, how are we notified? Actually, Ball State would notify me or Vicky first. That would be the first step. With our kids, what we have, and Burris has the same thing, we have a lockdown procedure basically that everybody stays in the building that they're in, and we have a series of steps that we go through as far as securing the different entrances and everything. And the kids at the beginning of the year will be instructed on, if we have a lockdown, this is what you do. If they're in our building, they go to their room and they stay in their room until like I come and key into their room and say, okay, everything's over, and I go door to door and do that, or one of my staff members does that. So that's the way we do it. In Burris, it's very similar, except it's in a classroom where it's confined. Every classroom is locked down like that. So that's our procedure. Yeah.
If this occurs while you have students signed out,
Yeah.
how do you?
I don't know the answer to that. The only thing that I know we do internally is when students are signed out, they're signed out on their sign-out cards, which when they sign out, they come up to the front desk, they ask for their card, they sign their card where they're going, and then they walk over to the door that they're exiting, and they put their slot in the sign-out card. So internally what we do is we go pull all those cards, and we know we don't have to worry about these kids right now because they're out of the building. They're not in immediate danger. We've got to protect our kids that are in-house immediately, because they could be out with you at, who knows where. And so I suppose if we ever got to that point, eventually we would probably start calling the cell phones of those kids or those parents that are out. But we would first make sure that we had everybody inside protected that we had charge of right then.
My only concern there would be that these kids are coming back
Right.
while this is happening. How would they know they're walking into?
Right. Well, and you know what? This is something that no campus is going to be able to give you an answer on that. I mean, that's just going to be a fact of life, just as much as you wouldn't know that a Wendy's was being robbed and you walked into it. And we can do what we can do internally to protect who's there. If we got to the point where we could start calling people, like if we actually had the time to do that, then that would probably be our next step is, okay, all these kids are out. Let's try to get a hold of who they're with right now and see if we can just let them know, don't come back. So that would be our next step. But thankfully, we have never been in a situation like that, but we do have a procedure for it. It's a good question. Yes, and police, campus police are very good. And fortunately, campus police, we're very connected to a lot of the campus police officers. Their building used to be right across the street from us. It's a big white building over there, so we are really connected to them, and we know a lot of the officers. They respond really quick, even when we have a popcorn fire alarm, meaning that someone burnt popcorn. They're there in, usually it's like 1 minute. They're literally right there. They're only about 2 blocks away now, but it's usually one of the guys that we know or one of the women that we know on the force will come over and make sure it's popcorn before we get all the fire trucks there, So some,
How
yeah,
did you handle 9/11? My son was here then.
yeah,
He said you locked down.
yeah, we did lock down. September 11th, it was, we have a crisis team, and thankfully we've only had to meet a couple of times in the 10 years that I've been here. September 11th was one of those times. And basically, what we did was we tried to get information as best we could to the students about what was going on. We did turn on all the TVs downstairs, and we projected, I think it was probably CNN or one of the news channels up on our big screen wall, so kids could really kind of watch for themselves, because we didn't know either what was going on right as it started to happen. But we do have a crisis team that got together on that day. We arranged to have counselors come in. We didn't know how the day was going to progress, because as soon as it was determined that there was more than an accident going on, that's when we met as a crisis team. But we had no idea how the day was going to turn out, so we started putting all of our things into place as far as outside counseling. Ball State offered a ton of services for us, which thankfully we didn't end up needing, but we had a lot of things lined up in that way. We had a lot of small discussion groups that evening just to kind of debrief about, does everybody have the latest information, and that type of thing. And we did go into, I don't know if everybody remembers when on the news there was a lot about code red, code orange, yellow, what color were we? So the university put out, this is what we'll do as far as if the country's at code red, code orange, code yellow, whatever. So we started going with some of those guidelines. Thankfully, our campus and at the academy specifically, everything was okay, and we had a couple of students that were impacted by this as far as relatives in the area, but I don't recall that we lost anybody as far as someone close to any of our students, so we didn't have a lot of emotion to deal with, thankfully, in that regard. So the tunnel, and then a little bit into Elliott, so they're all underground for a tornado warning for Delaware County, and probably at least 4 times a year we're down there. It just happens. But yeah, we use the PA system for all kinds of emergencies, but most often it's just for a tornado warning, and they're usually down there for about 20 minutes or so, and they absolutely hate it because it's hot and everybody's confined in a real little space, but they're safe, so that's right. What else? Yeah.
Since you brought up natural disaster, I was just curious, not being from this area,
Yeah.
how prone is this area for flooding?
Here on Ball State's campus, not very. Now, just off campus, there's some neighborhoods that last summer got a lot of water, and some of the houses of my neighbors were underwater, but not any major flooding or anything. Probably the most common thing is going to be that we go down for these tornado warnings, probably 3 or 4 times a year at least, and then at least once a semester, even if we don't have any fire alarms go off, I schedule a fire drill, so we get to practice going through that, and the students get to practice going through that. Usually we have one that happens without me scheduling it. So what else? What other questions you guys have? I have a whole list here that I do need to get through, but what do you guys want to know about that we haven't answered? Yeah.
For weekends that are not on the extended list, is
Uh-huh.
there any special stuff that you can do if you want to pick up the kids?
That's a great question. So is there anything special you have to do to come and pick up your kids? Not on an extended weekend, just regular weekend, weekday, whatever. There's not anything special you have to do. You can always come and pick up your kid on a weekend. If you're going to come and pick them up for a weekday, then if they're going to miss class the next day, you do need to prearrange that through the attendance secretary and make sure, okay, my son or daughter is going to miss this or that. And they ask that you give them 5 days ahead of time to prearrange the absences. Now, if there's a family emergency or something like that, it's totally different. But if you know, oh, I've got to bring Johnny home for an orthodontist appointment, and this is the only time and place he can go, then you need to prearrange that 5 days ahead of time. But you guys are always welcome to come up and visit, or come up and take your son or daughter home for the night, even if it's a weeknight. And like I said, Tuesday, Thursday are lab days usually. If you want to come up on a Wednesday night, they get out of class at 4, and they don't have class the next day until 1. You could take them home overnight as long as you can get them back for the next class period. So don't ever feel like you can't come and pick them up or take them to dinner or whatever. We would want you to do that. And I guess maybe they would want to know if you're coming, but other than that, there's nothing special. Yeah, no, don't tell them. Just show up. If you do that, let me know, because I'd love to see that. And actually, I would actually walk you to their door and knock on the door for you and say, your mom's here. What else? Yeah.
Is there a sports schedule anywhere? I love
Yes.
to find it.
Yes, we participate with Burris Athletics. So it's a Burris Academy team. And just so I don't know if you've heard about Burris teams. Some of Burris teams are really, really good. Some of them are really average. And we always encourage our kids to try out for the teams, even if they haven't regularly participated in athletics. It is something that can kind of be that extra outlet for them to get involved with. And what we find is our kids that are more involved either in athletics or clubs or other activities outside of academics, we find that helps them with time management, because then they know, okay, this block of time is already used up, so I have to schedule my studying a little bit differently than, okay, I have nothing to do the rest of the day. It seems like I can get all this done, and they kind of have no structure to their day. So I would really encourage your students to get involved with Burris Athletics. The information is on Burris's website, and if our website's bsu.edu/academy, if you just change academy to Burris, it'll go to Burris's website and go to athletics, and all the schedules will be up there. Yeah. Okay. What else?
Well,
Yeah.
I checked into that, and for example, for soccer,
Mhm.
and I found it a little overwhelming that they have practice 2 hours a day every day.
Yes.
And I was like, well, the
Yeah.
study time was now.
Yes.
Time.
So the question is, if you go on the website and you look at the practice times, like for soccer, it's a 2-hour practice every day. That's true for most of the athletic teams. They're going to be about a 2-hour practice. But most of those practices are like from 4:30 to 6:30, and then they come back, have dinner, and then they have the evening to study. So it is kind of at the traditional time that practices would be, but it is a big time commitment. So if you feel like, well, maybe I don't want my son or daughter to participate in the very first semester they're here because maybe they need to get used to study habits or study skills or time management and things like that, then see if they could handle it maybe in the spring semester. I'm a little bit biased because I love sports and I love athletics, and I think they do a lot of good things for kids. But if you don't think that they can handle it, that's going to have to be between you and them, because I don't know your students right now. So, but if you think 2 hours is too much for them, then I would say, okay, maybe he has to wait or she has to wait until the next semester. Yeah. Yeah.
During the preview day, something was mentioned about a specific period of time that you guys recommend that they don't come home for in the initial,
Yeah.
so they can get used to being here and not being away from home and not being, homesick. Or
Right.
whatever.
So
What is that time frame? And
well, the question is, do we recommend a certain number of weekends basically that the students stay here and not go home? And so the parents kind of have to fight their urge to bring the kids home every weekend or whatever at the beginning. What we do, and I say this, I just encourage you to leave them here as many weekends as you feel comfortable. I don't want to set like a timeline. I know at preview day, I think they say Labor Day weekend, which is that first weekend or the first extended weekend. But realistically, if that's not going to be comfortable for your kids, then that's okay. But what I want you to know is in those first couple of weekends, well, all year long, we do something called weekend activities. So the student life staff puts together a ton of activities every weekend to keep them busy. If they want to have something to do, they've got something to do here with our staff. If in those first couple of weeks they're going home every weekend, it's not so much that they're going to miss those activities, but what they're going to miss is they're going to miss making those initial contacts and connections with their classmates. So I gently encourage you, I don't want to say this is like any kind of rule or anything we've ever studied to say, oh, kids who go home every weekend, they don't connect as well. We've never even looked at that. But it is true that in those first couple weekends, we notice that's when initial friendship bonds are forming. They're learning all kinds of things about their classmates. Through the week, they don't have as much time to do that, but on the weekends, they've got a lot of time to just hang out with friends and make those connections that they wouldn't make through the week necessarily. So I would just encourage you that as long as they're comfortable being here weekend after weekend for a little bit of time, that'd probably be a helpful thing. But absolutely, if they call you and say, I need to come home this weekend, I just need to see you guys. Don't feel like I or anybody else would say, I know, son, that you really want to come home, but I remember they told me not to take you home until this time. Don't worry about that, because they're going to be okay no matter whether you take them home or not, and eventually they will get into the groove of things. So I know in preview day you hear that, but as the person that runs that area of the school, the social residential area of it, don't feel obligated to leave them here any amount of weekends or whatever. If they're asking for something, you can maybe gently say, oh, aren't there things going on this weekend that you might want to connect with other students? And if they say, I just absolutely miss the dog, then just say, yeah, but you can always say, yeah, it's not you, it's the dog, it's your cooking now because all of a sudden you're a great cook compared to cafeteria food, but really, don't feel like we're saying, hey, if they don't make it to Labor Day weekend, they're going to really have a hard time adjusting. That's just not true. What we do know is we're going to do a lot of fun things with them over those first couple weekends. And when students are new to an environment, they're much more open to meeting new people and kind of new experiences and things like that. So we want them to experience that. But if that's at the risk of them being terribly homesick, it's not worth it, because if they go through that and they're terribly homesick during the whole event, they're not going to get out of it what we're hoping they're getting out of it anyway. So you're just going to have to use your discretion as parents and kind of really listen to, do they really need to come home this weekend? Or maybe I can say, oh, how about next weekend, or however you want to do it as a parent, okay? Okay, what else? Yeah?
When will, my daughter is interested in volleyball,
Okay.
and so, when will she be contacted for, like, tryouts? Does have a tryout before, and
I don't know that. Vicky,
that's early for us to.
right, Vicky and I were talking about this yesterday or Monday.
Best thing to do is to call Ray.
That's what I was gonna say.
Right.
I did that already. Just he is very good about getting back very promptly.
Yes.
I mean, I phoned him rather than emailed him because my son's interested in soccer. And there were forms on that CD on the packet.
She sent those in.
Right, because I sent those too. But I contacted him initially just to ask if they cut for soccer, just so I could get some more information. And he was very prompt and wonderful.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
Yeah. Ray Dawson is the athletic director, and he's a great guy, and
Very nice.
he will.
I can find it and give you a couple minutes.
Okay, so direct number goes right to his voicemail, call, and he does driver's ed right now. Okay. But, he gets back as soon as he possibly can and tell you everything you need to know.
Right. Yeah.
Are you doing anything special for special events like birthdays?
Yeah. Special events. One of the things actually on my list I wanted to tell you guys about. We do normal special events like any other high school. So we have a prom. We have what we call winter dance, which is kind of like a semi-formal dance. It's like a homecoming dance, but it's in the winter. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. We have something called Little Siblings Weekend. And so if your kids have younger siblings, they can come, the younger siblings can sign up for this weekend and they can come stay the night, one overnight. And then it's just one overnight. Just want to be clear about that.
Back on the younger siblings.
So they can come up for that weekend, and we do a lot of fun. We really gear it for younger kids, and so we do a lot of younger kid type activities. And then the next day is carnival that we have in Burris Gym, which is just little carnival games that they go around and they buy tickets and play these games. And the carnival is actually a fundraiser for the prom for that year. So we do that. We do something called Academy Awards, which is kind of a joke on the actual Academy Awards and a play on our name as the Indiana Academy. And it's a banquet, or it's like a dinner for the kids in the student center that's different than the regular cafeteria food they eat every day. And we hand out awards during the dinner, and they're funny awards like messiest room and things like that. It's student voted on type things. And then following the Academy Awards, and Academy Awards is towards the end of the year. Following Academy Awards, we have a slideshow, which is kind of just a memory slideshow of the whole year. It's just kind of like a yearbook of the year. It's about a 20 or 30-minute slideshow, and the kids really like that. We do regular school dances, so it's about once a month maybe, or maybe a little, it might be spaced out a little more than that, but we just have regular school dances that's right here in our building or in the basement at Elliott. So we have normal school events like that. Let me look through here. Oh, we do a Kings Island trip at the end of April that the kids can go on if they want to go on. And then I already talked about we do club fair, which is when everybody signs up for clubs and things like that. So we do a lot of just regular, normal, this is what every other school does, like a prom type events. So you don't have to worry that your kids are going to be missing out on that. Although, if they want to go to their home prom or their homecoming event, to stay connected with their friends at home, that's great. I mean, if they want to be doing that, usually the school will send me, or the student will have to come to me with a form that says this student is a good citizen at your school or whatever, and we have to send it to the principal or whoever. But they can still go to those. If they have someone they want to bring to one of our events, like to our prom, that's okay too. The only events that I generally don't want outside people coming to is like our regular, normal, everyday school dances. I don't like to get into how many people from outside schools are coming to those, just because we have them right in the residence hall, and it's not like an event we go and do somewhere else. It's like right in their home or in their living room, or however you want to look at this. So those dances, the more common ones, I generally don't like that. If there's a real special occasion or a special situation where somebody from out of state is going to be in town or whatever, then I have made exceptions for that. But just generally speaking, they're welcome to come to like our prom and winter dance, our big dances, but not just the every month regular school dances. Yeah.
On the Kings Island trip, is there a minimum academic standard that they have to be at?
No, because all of our students are at that requirement, right? Okay. No, we don't have an academic standard for that trip. It's basically, and it's not a class trip either. A lot of schools will do like a senior class trip or a junior class trip. It's for the whole school. Anybody who wants to go can go. And we charter a couple buses, and we take about half our staff goes with the trip, and it's a lot of fun, and the kids love it, but there isn't any requirement like that. Now, I guess the only requirement would be if they were in if they were a discipline problem throughout the year, I might sit down with the parents and the student and say, okay, if we're going to have this happen, then you have to know this, this, and this about your behavior on this trip and things like that. But as far as academics, no. What else? Should I start on my list now? Okay. All right, here we go. Community service. Community service, the students need to get 50 hours of community service before they graduate. So they've got 2 years to do this. My recommendation is they get it done this summer. If they're already officially enrolled and you've paid the $100 to reserve your spot and all of that, they can start doing their community service right now. So if they get it done before their junior year, they will never have to think about it again. It's a nice thing to just have out of the way. There's a list on the form of already pre-approved locations. It's a real general list, like it says like hospitals, nursing homes, libraries, it's like that. If you have a real specific question about would this count, just call me or call the front desk, and we'll be able to answer that question of, yeah, that'll count, or no, that won't. The only guidelines, and the form, by the way, is on our website. If you go to the form section, it's the last form on there. You just print it out. The supervisor and the student have to sign off on it. If they do 15 hours or more at any one location, I do need them to write a one-page, what we call a journal, but it's not really a moment by moment what happened. It's more, this is how I think I helped this organization. These are some of my responsibilities. And what that's for is, if when they are applying for colleges, a college wants to know more specifics about what they did, I can just pull out of their file what it is they did. This is not like a graded paper or anything. I'm not going to read it and say, grammar is terrible here. You're going to have to redo this. It's just for my reference. It's just so I know more specifically what they've done. With community service, just so you guys understand, this is one of the things that more and more colleges and universities are looking for high school students to have already had experience in. And when they apply to a college, if their application looks very similar to someone else who's done some kind of service-related activity, the person with the service-related activity is probably going to look better to the university. So what I'll do is our requirement's 50 hours to graduate from the academy. But if the student wants to do more than that, that's great, and I'll keep track of it in my office. So a couple of years ago, I had someone graduate with 277 hours, and when they got to put that on their college application, that was huge. And they just came in my office and said, "Can you remind me of all the things that I did?" And I said, "Absolutely." Pulled out the file, we jotted down some notes about everything, and that was a huge thing for them to have. So I'll track as many hours as they want to do, but 50 is our requirement. Yeah.
I just want to know, could they use hours that they've done, like if they do the class?
No, they cannot. They can only do it once they get enrolled here. The three kind of guidelines are, well, I guess there's four. You can't do it ahead of time. You have to do it once you're enrolled here. But they can't be paid in any way. It's totally voluntary. The second thing is the supervisor for the activity can't be any relative. It can't be in any way related, whether it's a step whatever or an in-law, or it can't be any of those things. And then the last thing is it can't be for any other type of credit. So if they're a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout and they need to do so many hours to earn some status in the Scouts, they can't say, "Oh, I did it for this in Scouting, and so I'll just apply it for the Academy too." It's got to be specifically for the Academy. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm in Boy Scouts, but I don't technically need service hours.
Okay.
I'm done with that part. Do they still count?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, if you don't need the service for anything else, then it would count.
Right.
Yep. Yep. What grade are you in?
I'm be a freshman.
2 years. Okay, 2 years. But you can't count anything that you do ahead of time, so you got to save it up and do it once you get enrolled here.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's bonus program you offer, where they can attend,
I'm sorry. What was the question?
the buddies program you offer. Are you providing
Oh, the Burris Buddies.
buddies?
Yeah.
Are you providing, are you going to be setting that up if they want to sign up for that?
Okay. In general, your students are on their own to set up their community service. We don't arrange anything. If they find something in Muncie that they want to do, they have to arrange their own transportation, everything like that. Now, we do have something through Burris that they do that's called a Burris Buddies program, and it's like a tutoring program. Is that the best way to?
Yeah, it's our kids just going and working with the Burris.
Yeah, so it's our kids helping Burris kids work on different class projects, work on different assignments. So it's like a tutoring program, and we will give students community service for doing that. And that's real convenient because they just have to walk over to Burris. Leah, is it Leah? Leah Hooper is the one that sets that up every year. So the students will get a lot of emails from the staff, and one of those people will be Leah Hooper sending out, anybody who wants to be a tutor or a Burris buddy, they can sign up for that. So that's one way they can get community service here. In addition to community service, there's academy service, and academy service is basically community service, but it's in-house. So it's something they do here at the academy for the academy. So it might be something as simple as, can I sort the mail today at the front desk? Okay, come back and do that. You can probably get 30 minutes of academy service in. Or it might be admissions or our outreach department. They need a bunch of letters stuffed in envelopes, so they can get a couple hours there. It might be a student life counselor that's putting up an informational bulletin board on the MITS bus transportation system. Do you want to help do that? Okay, go help with that. It might be a teacher that's putting together a presentation that they're doing somewhere like Purdue, and they need to get a bunch of stuff together organized here. They can help the teacher do that. So academy service, they need 30 hours over 2 years. And then the last thing is called wellness. And wellness, it's basically a program that provides educational programs for students after school, and that's something that my staff, the student life counselors, they put on those programs in the evenings, on the weekends. And anybody want to take a guess at how many programs we put on in one semester? Any guess?
All of them?
Pick a number. 100? It's higher than 100. Not 200, 150 minimum. One semester. Okay? So how many, if your kids are going to be here 4 semesters, how many programs will we do over 4 semesters? Minimum. 600 programs. Okay? Now, you know how many wellness programs your kids have to go to in 2 years? 30. Okay? So they've got a lot to pick from. There's no reason they can't get their wellness done. There is 600 programs they could go to. Now, that number's a little bit exaggerated because of this. Some of the programs will only be offered to, like if I'm a male SLC on a floor, I might say this program is just for my guys that I'm in charge of, the 20 guys that live on my floor. So some of the programs, like the girls wouldn't be able to go to because it's just for those guys. So it's not 600 that would be offered to everybody, but it's probably like 400. So still, it's a huge number of programs that they'd be exposed to over 2 years. They only have to pick 30 of them that they want to go to. So that's kind of a perspective on wellness. We have 5 dimensions of wellness: vocational, emotional, spiritual, diversity, cultural, and physical. So the programs are about different categories, or they fall into those different dimensions. They're usually pretty entertaining. Sometimes we bring in people from outside to present those. Sometimes it's our student life staff that's presenting the information. Sometimes they watch like a movie or a documentary and then they have a discussion afterwards. So it's kind of here's the topic, let's watch this and I'll discuss it. So it's a wide variety of things, but there's a lot of programming that happens just in our residence hall. And sometimes we take them to programs at Ball State where we don't even have to facilitate it. We just have to take them over there and watch what's going on at Ball State, whether it's a presenter, some sort of activity or program, or sometimes it's just a show that comes to Emmons Auditorium that we're going to go and watch and then discuss. So there's a wide variety of wellness. I have 10 minutes. Oh, yeah, okay.
I just had a question about the rooms. You guys go in and check the rooms out anytime?
Yes. Do we ever check the rooms? That's a great question. We once a week, with the exception of when they're on extended break. So every time there's a full week of school, once a week we check the rooms, and what it is the student life counselor that is assigned to your son or daughter, they will go room to room to all of their kids that they're in charge of, and they'll look around the room for things like, is the trash empty? Does the refrigerator smell okay? Things like that. Yeah. But what we don't do is, we don't put on a white glove and check if they've dusted their. Yes, like if there's piles of clothes, if it smells funny in the room, anything like that, they're going to address those things, and they have to, within that time frame, they have to get it corrected right then. They can't leave the room until they get it fixed, whatever it is. Speaking of laundry, I told you, I think I told this group yesterday, I'd mentioned this. It's really, really important that you teach your sons and daughters how to do laundry, okay? I'm not kidding. There's 2 reasons for this. One, and I'm speaking very broadly here, but a lot of our boys don't like to have to go to class with all pink clothes, okay? And we've had kids walk to class in pink socks because they didn't understand that the colored or the dark clothes can't go with the white clothes, otherwise they'll bleed together. So for one, teach them that. But secondly, just for general personal care and hygiene, it's really important now that they're living in a community, now that they're living with a roommate, they need to make sure that they're washing their bedding. I had a mom come to me one time and say, why hasn't my son washed his sheets all semester? And I said, I don't know. Haven't you talked to him about doing this? I mean, I don't know why. So make sure you're talking to them about things as basic as that, which reminds me, we have extra long mattresses in our rooms, so you need to make sure that you get extra long sheets. If you don't live in a college town, they might be harder to find, but if you're here in Muncie or if you live in a college town, as the fall approaches, you're going to be able to find extra long sheets because most universities have extra long mattresses. I don't know why, that's just the way it is. So, yes, with lofts, if you want to build a loft, that's okay. We have a lot of different bed frame styles, so my recommendation would be that you wait until you actually get assigned to a room and then measure the bed frame, make sure you know like how you're going to attach it and everything. If you go ahead and build one ahead of time and then your bed frame doesn't fit right, you're kind of just out of luck, or unless someone will trade with you, but that's going to be on your own. There is a loft company in town that you can rent from. There's a couple problems. The bed frames only fit there's only one bed frame that fits their loft style, and you may or may not get that in your room. And the other thing is the pickup days are when Ball State ends. So they have to take the lofts down and return them at that point versus when we end. We end about 3 weeks after Ball State. So with lofts, you are welcome to rent those. They'll be in our parking lot on move-in day as far as if you want to look at those, if you've got the right bed frame and all that. Everything that's in the room, though, if you build a loft, you have to keep everything that is in the room, stays in the room for the whole year. So if your loft is like a big table that you just slide a mattress on, so it's got a wood deck and everything, you just slide the mattress up on top, you have a metal bed frame in your room that you still have to store in there, and there is a way to do that pretty easily. They have wardrobes that they keep the clothes in and everything. You can pull those out about 2 inches and you can fold the legs down on the bed frame and slide it right back there. People have done that ever since I was started here. So the last 10 years they've been doing that, and that's been safe to do. So lofts are acceptable. You can do it. I don't have any restrictions on when you build those or when you bring those in. Some colleges will say after October, no more lofts come in the building. I don't have that. You can bring it whenever you want, okay? Okay, really quickly, Vicky's got to talk. How about you talk and I'll mark down what I haven't talked about yet.
Okay. Give me the little thingy. I'll talk fast.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about mental health counseling, emotional mental health counseling. If there's something that is going on with your child, or there has been something that's going on with your child, and we need to be on the same page to take care of them. If there's been anorexia, if there's been depression, if there's been something like that, please don't think that you want to hide that from us, because we're going to continue to work with them, and sometimes if they are recovered, stress can bring some of those symptoms back. And so either send me an email, catch me at move-in, but I need to, don't just come up and tell me, because I need to be able to write that down someplace so I can keep track of that. I'm in charge of the personal counselor, and I meet with him about every day, and he and I take care of most all of those things. So please don't be shy in saying, hey, I'm a little worried about this, I'm a little worried about that, if some of that's going on. The other thing that I just want to throw out there, I've heard some of you comment about, boy, they sure didn't want my kid to leave their home school. And I want to share a little bit about why that is. Number one, they love your child, and I'm sure that they're a wonderful asset to their school. But there is more to it than that. And that also is why you have to pay $1,500 to have your son or daughter attend here. That $1,500 that we are now charging you, which is new the last 2 years, is because of the financial state of most public schools. When the academy became in 1990, and the legislators sat down and said, yeah, we want this to happen because it's about time that gifted kids get some attention, they gave us a lot of money. And some of that money refurbished Burris, because we use that as classrooms. We were able to redo the building and do a lot of really neat things that needed to be done. Well, in the 17 years that we have been here, they have not changed our budget significantly at all. So as your prices have gone up in your life in the last 17 years, our budget has not increased much. Along with that, we are renters here on Ball State's campus. The building that we stay in, they charge us daily for each child that lives there and for each child that eats here. So when we start the school year off with 300 kids, there's a daily rate for that. It doesn't matter if they don't use their meal card, we're still being charged as if they are using their meal card. So what happens then, if you've been looking at the papers, just in the last 5 years, the amount that Ball State has charged for room and board has gone up significantly, anywhere from 4% to 5% to 6% to 7%. Every time that goes up, we are charged that much more per child. And it's gone up actually every year that we've been in existence. So what has happened is that if you're sending a child to college, you're just writing a bigger check, and Ball State gets theirs from the parents. But that doesn't happen here. So we were kind of going on to the point of where we truly didn't have the kind of money to keep up with their rates. And Ball State would bail us out a little bit, and then we might have some money left over at the end of the year, and they would take that. Well, we got a new president who said, no, we're not operating that way anymore. You've got to have the money on paper that says you're going to be able to pay for this. So looking at our budget, the only way for us to make budget, actually we cut a couple of positions and cut back on some things, and then said if each parent just pays $1,500, we're going to make it. Now, the real cost of having your son or daughter eat here and live here is about $9,000. So you're just paying about $1,500 of that. And then, you know, the classes are free. We're not charging any kind of tuition. So I wanted you to understand that so that you can know where your money was going and why that is. But I don't want you to worry. The school's not in the midst of collapse or anything like that. We have a really neat capital campaign going on where it's called the Spatial Initiative, that people can actually donate money to. We have the alumni is doing a really good job of supporting that. So, to you, when you bring us your child and you pull them out of their public school, minimally that school is probably giving up $6,000 because now they're not theirs, they're ours, and we get that money. The other thing that your school loses is an honors diploma money. For each child that graduates from a high school with honors diploma, you get so much money, about $1,800 per child. We get that money. That's actually how we keep our computer program going, with that honors diploma money. So the other thing that it does is also change their test scores. So if they take out the best kids, it changes their test scores. Do you know what happens to schools when their test scores go down? They get less money, and they're on a watch list. So don't be too angry with your schools at home. It's kind of sad that we all have to kind of be, you know, going after the same kids. They're going after them because, guys, it's helping their school a lot, and we're just trying to provide a service. So I wanted you to be aware of that when you had all those questions of what was going on. The other thing that you need to know is that we realize that not all of you are rich. You know, we have people that are extremes. We have some folks that have just lost their jobs, some folks that financially cannot pay that $1,500. If you qualify for free lunch at home, you're not paying that $1,500. You don't pay anything at all. We take some of that money out of that special initiative and we pay from that. It's kind of like taking it from here and putting it here, but to Ball State it makes a big difference. If you qualify for a reduced lunch, then you're only paying $500. It's those people that are right in the middle, or things have changed dramatically since you qualified, if you just lost your job. If you're in a situation of where you can't pay the $1,500 or you can only partially pay that, we do have a fund set up that we can help you. That's why we have this spatial initiative. So if that is a problem for you, actually the person to contact is Barb Spike. You will all get information also in your packet if you want to apply for a waiver or you need to apply for assistance. If your son or daughter is one of those kids that, guys, I'd really like to go to the prom, I'd really like to go to a dance, but I don't want to ask mom and dad for the money because we just don't have it right now. Make sure that your child knows that they can come and ask for assistance as well. If they want to go on some kind of trip and you can't afford to send them, they can ask for that. For those of you that do have plenty of money or you have leftover dresses or prom dresses, I mean, it's amazing how much it helps to just say, hey, let's bring these dresses in for prom. There are kids that don't have the kind of money that we do, and maybe we can help. If any of you want to contribute to that spatial initiative, you feel like you've really been blessed and you want to help other people in that, you can actually get online and you can give money to that spatial initiative, and you can designate that money is going to go in to help kids in their families that are not able to pay that money. So I just wanted to briefly share that with you, so if you had questions, you would understand it. Our goal is to eventually get back to where it is free. If the economy changes and gas goes down and the legislators give us a little bit more money, there's a little bit of politics that play into this, because we do have folks that go to the legislative sessions, you know, to ask for money for Ball State. We're part of that. But right now, politically, it's not a good time to be asking for money for the Indiana Academy, because all the other public schools are hurting a lot, and we don't want to even be on their radar of, oh gosh, if we got rid of this school, we could give a lot more money to these schools. So you learn when to ask and when not to ask, because if they forget about you, that's sometimes a very good thing. So we're doing well, we're making it, we're going to be fine, but I wanted you to understand that. Any questions on that? Yes?
If, let's just say things don't work out, and my daughter has to come back home, are you going to, how are you going to assist and get her what she's done so far transferred back?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Because it seems like we're having an opportunity at the Humanities High School with the credits and if she comes back or whatnot. So.
No, we assist in doing that.
Okay.
Yes. We hope you don't leave, but yes, we assist. Okay. All right. Yes.
If their home schools stand to lose so much, why in the world would they recommend?
Because they care about what's best for your child. I mean, they're stuck, and usually it's the guidance counselor or the vice principal that's writing the recommendations, or the teachers, and they're torn between. I mean, and those folks don't deal a lot with the budget. It's usually the superintendent that knows they're losing $6,000 if the child comes, but they're truly making a recommendation on, we can't provide for your child what we need, and we want them to have this opportunity. We're going to make it. It's a little painful. And that's the wonderful thing about educators, is that they're going to try to do the best thing for your child, even though sometimes it's painful for them. Yes, exactly. All right. You
Okay,
have no
don't-
minutes.
Don't move. I'm over time, but. let me-
Sorry. Talk.
Okay, a couple quick things. One, there's no pets in the residence halls. Okay. I didn't know if anybody had like a dog or a cat that they were thinking about bringing, but no pets.
Yes, you can have fish, but they're really stinky.
Fresh water.
You get a filter and.
Freshwater fish only, no saltwater fish, and they have to maintain the aquarium well if they have one, okay? Okay, the other thing is, no, they cannot cook in their rooms other than with a microwave, so no like George Foreman grills or any other whatever. They cannot use those. However, if you have like a George Foreman grill gourmet at your house and you would like them to be able to use that, they have to talk their student life counselor into storing that in their apartment for them, and they can take it down to our kitchen on the main floor and use that, but they cannot do it in their room, and they can't store it in their room, okay? And then the last thing is, I can't believe I forgot to mention this at the beginning. When your students come here, they need to be responsible people already. So please, if you have a student that is acting outrageous at home and crazy and always getting in trouble, and you're always having to confront them about things, don't have in your mind like, oh, I'll send them to the academy, they'll straighten them out. No, we won't. I mean, we're not a military academy. We're not, that's not what we do here. They already have to come with those responsibilities and be able to take care of themselves and respect others and those types of things. And once they're here, I think they'll grow a lot, and I think they'll learn a lot from being around other people and learn different levels of respect and things like that and how to be kind to people. But we're not here to straighten them out, or we're not here to correct any behavior that they're displaying at home. So make sure you have those kinds of conversations with them. If they're getting in trouble at home, they're probably going to get in trouble here. And the difference is we're going to kind of lead them then out the door and back home. You guys don't have that option at home. So maybe you have that option, but I don't know. If the option is you're leading them out and sending them here, it's probably not going to work out here either. So anyway, sorry I didn't say that at the beginning, but I wanted you to know. I don't want you to have your expectations up here and then say, what happened? You guys didn't fix anything. Well, that's not what we're here for, okay?
When are we going to see you again? When are you moving in? Very good. And it's very important that you're here, that you stay, because those meetings are very important. Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much.